Hello, everybody. I have a very special guest. Me and this guy go way back. Um, this is Comrade Christian from Chicago. He is not just named Christian, but he is a Christian. I know. People are free to identify how they want, but I just want to pick his brain a little bit. No, he's not a trot, so I'm not picking his brain that way. But I just want to pick his brain. Like, how can you be a Christian and a communist? But first, a bit of comedy. So this is Dr. Umar Johnson, not a very nice guy. He has some things to say about the solidarity and struggle of the Palestinian and New African peoples. Oh, Christian, do you have anything to say? I know I introduced you, but
No, just thanks for having me on. Let's listen to the comedy.
I've been getting harassed by Palestinians all over my posts, all in my inbox.
so first, just starting off, like this guy is so up his own ass. Like these people are being bombed. They're being having all sorts of horrible things done to them. Like I saw at Al Shifa Hospital a couple days ago an RDX bomb. It's like it's a missile, but it's not like a missile that blows up. It has like this is a literal like fucking Animaniacs 1950s cartoon type of evil. So this thing falls on you, but it doesn't explode right before it touches the ground. Like five blades come out of this thing, and yeah. So you can picture like what happens when you drop this on a hospital courtyard that's full of tents. It was a very gruesome scene. That's why I'm not showing it here. But Dr. Umar doesn't start with the call for solidarity. He doesn't start with the call for anything. He just starts talking about what these people, the Palestinian people, have been doing to him. So, first and foremost, he's egotistical as all hell.
I want to say this to the Palestinians. I have no gripe with you. I have no issue with you.
I
But
don't
it
think
is
you've got
very
sound on
arrogant.
that.
Huh?
I don't know if there's sound coming out. I'm not hearing it.
There's sound coming out of it.
Okay.
I could hear it. The people that are watching the stream can hear it, but you can't for some reason.
For you. I did not disrespect
This is why I'm going to start using StreamYard.
you or your people. I wished y'all well in your struggle against white supremacy. I wish the Palestinians well in their struggle against white supremacy.
Also, another sign of a charlatan, a mountebank, a guy that doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. He repeats himself over and over and over again.
But I'm not
He thinks it makes him sound profound. It just makes him sound stupid and unsure of what he's saying.
taking attention off of the African struggle to pay attention to your struggle.
Because you totally cannot like engage in two struggles at the same time. Like keep in mind when Ferguson popped off, like it was the Palestinians that were sending us messages of solidarity on Twitter and painting on the border wall. Like this is how you deal with tear gas. Somebody in this world actually cares about what happens to y'all. Solidarity is not transactional and it's not a zero sum game. You can demonstrate solidarity with the Palestinian people, not just because they're fellow oppressed people, but because like we share the same enemy, the same bombs that are falling on them. If we pop off, the same bombs are going to fall on us. So why would you try to split two liberation struggles apart from each other? It's very bizarre.
Y'all sent me a meme, a little video of a Palestinian. He showed the picture of three paintings that was created by a few Palestinians during the Black Lives Matter
Does that say PewDiePie?
era. And to those Palestinian young men and women who painted those murals on behalf of African people, if you were sincere in what you did, I thank you. But I need you to be very clear about something. You understand? You're not dealing with a fool. You're dealing with a very deep critical thinker.
If you identify, Christian, do you identify as a very deep critical thinker?
I try not to self-identify as things like that. You know what I mean?
I mean, I identify as an asshole. I would never call myself a very deep critical thinker. Like,
Yeah.
even if that is what you are, it there's a time and a place for everything. Like, you cannot just blow yourself up like this
Right.
because it makes you appear arrogant, which Dr. Umar is very arrogant. and very ignorant to go along with it, as arrogant people tend to be. But like, this is not a profound statement. He does have an actual doctorate, by the way. I think it's in child psychology or something like that. So he's not faking his degrees. But like, I don't fucking know. They just hand out degrees to everybody.
Just because you painted a mural doesn't mean you give a damn about black people. I can show you murals painted by white people. I can show you statues built by white people.
This dude is fucking spitting.
I can show you buildings erected by white people. I can show you institutions created by white people who didn't give a damn about black people. So I want to make sure we understand.
But do any of those paintings like depict black people who were murdered by the police?
And it's my Palestinian family. Just because a couple of Palestinians painted a couple of murals does not mean the Palestinian people stands with black people. Palestine is a nation state with a government.
No, it isn't. I think they only have observer status at the UN, and like everything that matters is controlled by Israel. Like if a country can shut your water and electricity and food and other shit, like Gaza has been under blockade for 17 years. Like if a country could just fuck with you like that, you are not an independent country. You are a colony. Like I saw yesterday, there's a call for like 100,000 workers from India because like Israel is currently bombing Gaza into rubble. So it's not like the workers are going to report to work. They're either dead or they're half dead or they're missing arms and limbs. Either way, they're not going to be very good for labor because PTSD does not make you a very good worker. And that's all that Israel cares about. So one thing about settler colonies is that they cannot sustain themselves. Like, do you wonder why like South Africa did not just massacre all of the Africans? Why didn't Rhodesia just massacre all of the Africans? Kenya, Israel, like why hasn't Israel finally done away with the Palestinians? For one, the Palestinians won't let them. And for two, like who's going to work? Like settlers do not come to countries that their ancestors did not inhabit to work. Okay? Like you don't leave London or Russia to go to Tel Aviv and dig fucking ditches. What do settlers leave and go? What do settlers settle for, Christian? Why did your ancestors come here?
Escaping a war or better jobs, more money, more spoils of imperialism.
But did they come to dig ditches?
Hell no.
Hell no.
Open businesses.
Yeah, like that's what my people were here for. Like black people were America's proletariat. We dug the ditches. We paved the streets that we couldn't walk on. Like my grandma grew up in Mississippi, and like the shit that she told me about like what they had to do down there. Like if a white person is coming towards you on the sidewalk, actually we weren't even allowed to walk on the sidewalk. We had to walk on the side of the street. And I was wearing a pair of, I think it was a pair of red Chucks. And my grandma looked at me and was like, Chris, you got on a pair of white boy tennis shoes. I'm like, what? Grandma, what are white boy tennis shoes? Apparently black people were not allowed to wear shoes like that. We had to wear brogans, or boots. Like we were not allowed to wear tennis shoes. I'm like, what the? So y'all segregated the fucking shoes? Like you could get lynched because you were wearing a pair of Chuck Taylors? Like Malcolm X said, when you're dealing with a white man, you're dealing with a silly man. Like that's just silly shit.
Has the Palestinian government ever entered any argument on behalf of African people at
They have issued several statements of solidarity.
the United Nations? I'm gonna ask
They don't even have like full representation at the United Nations. They have observer status.
question again. Because you showing me murals that was painted by the Palestinians 5-10 years ago, that does not mean you stand with us. Did the Palestinian government enter any formal argument on the floor of the United Nations on behalf of American Africans? That's the question I'm asking. Did the Palestinian state put forth a resolution to stop the trafficking of Africans right now into slavery in East Africa?
What has this guy done to prevent slavery in East Africa? Like
Don't
they cannot do that. They do not have any. Like this guy's a doctor, and like millions of black people look up to this guy. Like they actually consider this guy a revolutionary intellectual. He identifies as a Pan African. And one thing about Pan African, because I'm a revolutionary communist and a Pan African, one thing that Pan Africans do not do is draw distinctions between different liberation struggles. This is Dr. Umar Johnson. He has some other name, Dr. Umar Ibatunde or something like that. But like he's a charlatan, a hack, and this is not how you talk about people when they are engaging in violent liberation struggle. Like if anything, we should be trying to find our balls from the Palestinians. Like these people literally broke out of jail. They didn't sit around and ask and march and die in and lay down in the middle of the fucking street. They literally stole a fucking Israeli bulldozer and broke down the border wall. Like we should be trying to learn from the Palestinians. They hooked up fucking MacGyver shit, dudes in lawn chairs with fans on the back and pieces of cloth stretched over them, basically makeshift paragliders. They flew over the fucking border and they did their thing. Like, we should be trying to learn from these people, and here you are fucking insulting them. Like, how is any of this bringing revolution to black people in the United States? Like, how is you sitting here running your mouth and repeating yourself over and over and over again? Like, how is that helping?
Show me no.
How is that helping black people? Like, we've been waiting for liberation for 500 years, and are you the culmination of 500 years of our ancestors' trials and struggles? We might as well just pack it up right now. I can't watch any more of this. Oh, yeah. Swag. I want one. So you are a Christian communist. How does that work?
That's a good question. I'm still trying to figure that out myself sometimes. But it was basically, the idea was that when I was trying to figure out what I wanted my faith to be like, because I did not grow up like very religious. I kind of came to it as like an annoying high schooler. I always tell people like I did the opposite of what most people. I grew up in a very liberal, kind of secular environment. So my rebellion was becoming a really dweeby, annoying Christian. But I got over that, and I started looking for like a politics that expressed my religious beliefs about who Jesus was, because for me, my religion was always about Jesus first. A lot of Christians, it's not, I mean, I know it's in the name, but that's not quite how it is. They have a lot of doctrines, and a lot of it is based on church life. For me, it was less like that. So when I'm looking for a politics, when I'm is probably in like 2014, around then, I'm looking for a politics that expresses my understanding of who Jesus was. And as I'm learning about it, learning about like, you know, what kind of political movements have called for and classless societies, that obviously led me straight to communism. And that was kind of the impetus to start studying Marx and Engels. And then from there, you know, the later theorists.
So you came to communism from Christianity. Like you were basically looking for a politics that closely mirrored those of the early Christians.
Yeah, basically. It started with studying Jesus historically. So, and I'm, you know, I've made myself a somewhat, not to be too arrogant, but like a little bit of a prominent figure for communist Christianity. But I'm not necessarily the most paradigmatic example of that, right? I have kind of unique theological beliefs. And I don't have that, like, I didn't grow up Christian, so I'm not like, I don't necessarily relate to a lot of other Christians. But that being said, yes, I was studying Jesus historically. I wanted to learn about who he actually was as like a historical figure without all the like religious stuff. And that's what kind of led me to believe or understand him as like an anti-colonial. I don't know if I'd say anti-capitalist, because he didn't live in like a capitalist society, but definitely an anti-colonial and like anti-stratified class society. So, you know, from there, communism is kind of it's the only place to go, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. Like, um, there's a lot of people on Twitter that, like, for example, since the 7th, let me see if I can pull up Hakeem's post.
I know exactly what tweet you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to scroll all the way down. I see, that's a sign that I tweet too much. Here it is. So Hakeem says, how do the Palestinian people persist as Muslims through their unshakable faith, which drives their anti-colonial struggle? I've gotten many messages asking on the topic, so I'm going to list a few reading recommendations. So first and foremost is the Quran.
Yeah.
Muhammad, his life based on the earliest sources. Apostate from Christianity to Islam in times of secularization and terror, and quite a bit. Like he's basically getting clowned on. And like this is an Arab dude. Like I think he lives in Michigan or somewhere. But like this is an Iraqi Muslim and a communist. And I would dare any of these people that are saying this shit to go to Palestine or go to Iraq or go to Kurdistan or go anywhere where there's been struggle waged and insult these people's religion. Like that's not going to end very well to you. Like here's one. All these people are white. Like Quran is your favorite book. I followed you for years, assuming you were an atheist or at least an agnostic. Now I assume that you're religious. But it wasn't clear from your videos. I am very confused. Like, what is there to be confused about?
Why do you care so much? Like,
yeah,
why?
That's my thing. Like,
there's this because so many of these types of socialists treat, and you see this a lot from the kind of like, you know, communister than thou type Maoists and Marxist Leninists. I'm sure you see it from all across the communist spectrum. I see it a lot from those kinds of people. They treat their politics like a religion.
Mm-hmm.
So they assume that their communist politics and somebody's religion kind of fulfill the same needs in an individual. So when they see a communist who is religious, they assume that there's some kind of conflict there, right? Yeah. That they're taking up, like one is taking up space that should belong to the other when they're not. You know, they shouldn't be. Your politics should not be a religion. You as a Marxist should not be treating Marxism as a religion.
Yeah, that shows how that shows how these people really don't understand dialectical materialism.
No, they really don't, and they're the loudest and most annoying about using the term dialectical materialism, and they do not truly understand it.
Yeah, that's why our boy said no investigation, no right to speak. So here's Comrade Hayat. She's saying that the fact that so many people are angry at this tweet is a pretty good representation of where the Western left is at right now. Completely ill-equipped to understand what gives a young person the spirit to get into a hand glider and dive headfirst into the belly of the occupation. Like, the only way that, like, the only communists that I've seen who would willingly do that shit in the United States are probably not all that mentally stable. Like they're not guided by anything besides rage at stuff that generally doesn't have anything to do with their material conditions. They're just angry and angsty. Like if they didn't discover Marx or Engels or Lenin or Stalin or Mao or whichever other great head they're obsessed with, they probably would have been done something horrible at a school with a gun. So like,
or they'd be in a cult.
Or they'd be in a cult like the Gonzaloites. Yeah, they'd be in the fucking Red Guards. Like, I totally see the Red Guards doing some stuff like that. And the thing is, like, there's a difference between Palestine and the United States. In Palestine, that sort of resistance is the only option that people have left. Here, like, we're not at that point yet. So if you try to do something like that, like, say like, these people are so obsessed with guns. Like, I grew up around fucking guns. Guns don't excite me. They're tools. Yeah. They are pieces of metal that you push a piece of metal on and pieces of hot metal come out. But like if you grew up in a suburb and you've never been around stuff like that, like the person in the chat said, you're going to get murked by the Fed so fast because you ain't used to shit. As we say in the black community, you ain't used to shit. So part of getting used to shit is realizing that there's a radical difference. We can certainly take lessons from what's going on in Palestine, but we have to take advantage of the material conditions here before we end up in full-fledged fascism, because it's coming. Like you don't think that, like, I've been arguing with reactionaries for the past 2 weeks because I've had a bunch of posts go viral. And like one of these people found out that I was from St. Louis. And he was like, "Oh, have you seen the North Side lately?" And he retweeted me, and he was like, "This guy's from St. Louis." I mean, considering that he's from the North Side and all of the people up there act like Hamas, this is what they're going to do to you. And honestly, I consider that the greatest honor that he could bestow on my city. But
Yeah, yeah,
but
you go hard.
yes,
I mean,
we go hard. I mean, we
I'm from
burn.
Chicago. We're like the bugbear in every American series discourse for the past 10 years.
Well, see, because St. Louis is so easy to forget. We're basically a suburb of Chicago. Like when y'all are broke, you all know that there's always a city a little bit further south that you can move to. And
Yeah.
when people in St. Louis get some money, we always love to move to Chicago.
Right. I never thought of it that way kind of until we started talking, but yeah, I see it for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. St. Louis, though, it does, you guys do have your own like distinct character down there. It's not like an Indianapolis or like a Cleveland. It's like, sorry to people who live in those areas, but those kinds of cities, like, there's nothing there that isn't in other cities.
Yeah.
Right?
St. Louis is basically just like a Midwestern. We're basically what New Orleans would be if New Orleans quit giving a fuck and moved to the Midwest. Like we have the French heritage, but like New Orleans is not really anything like St. Louis. I just say that because we both have like the French heritage thing going on. And I guess we have Soulard, which is, I guess, the French Quarter. But I used to work at Soulard. I hate Soulard. Soulard is full of rats. I hate Soulard. But
I mean, the French Quarter is too.
yeah, well, New Orleans in general is full of rats. But like any city that's by a huge body of water is going to be full of rats because
That's
rats
true.
like water. Just like when I came, first time I came to your town, I was like 17 years old. I hopped on a Greyhound. I came, the first thing I saw when I got out of the Greyhound station was a big ass rat hopping out of a tree. I'm like, oh yeah, cool. But
The Chicago.
yeah. I'm glad he didn't bite my toe off. But anyways, so back to what we were talking about. Like, I mean, these people are just so undialectical. Like, why would you? And then is this okay? Over a billion Muslims on the face of the earth, right? And I'm pretty sure we want most of those Muslims to be communists. We don't want them to be reactionaries. We don't want them fighting us. Same thing with Christians. Same thing with Jewish people. So if we want to get these people on our side, why would we antagonize them? Like, why would you insult their religion?
Yeah, it's this. So one of the most interesting ways that this like manifests, right, is that these people, they like to go on there and say you can't be a Marxist and religious.
Yes,
They
you
say
can.
it as this very like prescriptive statement, like you can't. So then when they look at people like me, I guess, not that I'm like anywhere on Hakeem's level or Hakeem, for example, who like are religious socialists or communists, what do you think those people are? They exist. We are human beings who do communist organizing and contribute to communist discourse. So like obviously they're not saying that we literally don't exist, but what they're saying is that to be a Marxist is to have a set of ideas, right? It's not to actually engage in proletarian class struggle
Yeah,
or anything like that. It's just to have the correct set of ideas. And that is just like orthodox doctrinaire forms of religion. It's the exact same kind of thinking that leads them to that path.
exactly. So I've got Mao's report on an investigation of the peasant movement in Hunan pulled up. And this is like my favorite way to deal with religion and superstition and all of these other sorts of things. So Mao says, if too much of an effort is made arbitrarily and prematurely to abolish these things being religion and various other superstitions, The local tyrants and evil gentry will seize the pretext to put about such counter-revolutionary propaganda as the Peasant Association has no piety towards ancestors. The Peasant Association is blasphemous and is destroying religion. And the Peasant Association stands for the communization of wives. Well, looking at the U.S. left, communization of wives isn't all that far fetched. All for the purpose of undermining the peasant movement. A case in point is the recent events at Shangshang in Hunan and Yangshan in Hubei, where the landlords exploited the opposition of some peasants to smashing idols. It is the peasants who made the idols, and when the time comes, they will cast the idols aside with their own hands. There is no need for anyone else to do it for them prematurely. The Communist Party's propaganda policy in such matters should be draw the bow without shooting, just indicate the motions. So that's how I look at it. Like, you cannot just, like, if you're a Marxist and you make your shtick, like, you spend 95% of your time attacking people's religion, like, there's something wrong with you. You are a chauvinist. And you've substituted what most normal people, the place that religion has in most normal people's lives, you substituted it with Marxism because you act exactly like backwards religious people do.
Yep.
And then I look at the example of John Brown. Like, John Brown was probably the greatest white person in the history of the United States. And this man was a Christian. He was not just a Christian. He was a fanatic Christian. I hate being sick. Anyways, so
yeah, he was a Puritan, which a lot of Americans, leftists, have strong opinions about. We still use Puritan as like a disparaging adjective. John Brown was a Puritan.
Wait. He was a pilgrim?
Not quite, but yeah, he came out of that denomination. I guess, I mean, literally, he was the descendant. I think one of his ancestors was on the Mayflower. So, like, yeah, he was descended from those people. He came from that, like, old Massachusetts Puritan religious background. I don't know if you had to read the sermon, Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God in high school.
I did. We did. That fucking Cotton Mather guy?
Yeah. Oh, no, John.
Look, I can't tell white people apart. I'm sorry.
I don't blame you. But, like, that was his favorite sermon and his favorite kind of theology. And so, like, this is one of the things that started disillusioning me with the kind of, like, leftist progressive Christian milieu, which I think has some good aspects to it, although it's overwhelmingly white and liberal, right? But they hate that sermon. Those people will put that sermon up as like everything wrong with American Christianity. At the same time, that sermon motivated John Brown to do the things that he did in the service of liberation, right? So there's this tension there. Yeah, John Brown was a fanatical Christian, absolutely.
What do you think of these people, the Unitarian Universalists? They're not Christians, are they?
No, not officially. There are a lot of Christians in them. One of my best friends is a minister in that church. It started, he also is a communist. It started as a Christian thing. Unitarian is a theological position that instead of the Trinity of, the Father, Son, Holy Ghost, it's that there isn't a Trinity. It's that there's just one God. And then universalism is the idea that everyone can go to heaven regardless of what religion. So, like, not only Christians are saved. So these two beliefs kind of combined back, further back in American history. And then over time, they've come to embrace this sort of, like, I don't want to call it secular humanism because they still have a church and it's still somewhat religious, but it's almost like an agnostic or atheistic religion in a lot of ways, where they do churchy things, but they don't take doctrinal positions on, like, God or the afterlife or things like that. Yeah. And a lot of them are really, like, annoying academic type people, and they're going to take a lot of issues with all the things I just said and be like, well, actually, but, like, that's kind of what it is. If you're, like, an atheist, but you like going to church, they're the denomination for you.
I mean, I met a few in Ferguson. They seem to be, like, they're pretty nice people.
Yeah. I again, like any like progressive, very white religious movement in America that comes out of American Protestantism, there's like an old guard of like old anti-woke racists, and then there's younger people who are like really trying to steer it in a more progressive direction.
Mm. And something else I want to say. You know, the Episcopalians, like it's weird because like that's basically the Church of England in the United States. Like the Episcopalians, like that's George Bush's church, okay? Like old WASP money. But
Yeah.
like when you look at the shit that they do, they seem to be extremely progressive.
Yeah, I can't, I don't have any like personal insight as to them. I know some people in them, but I do know that there's like maybe I'm overstating it a little bit, but it seems to me like there's this battle for their soul going on within that church right now between like a few different factions, between like younger, more progressive people, political radicals, and then like this old guard of like more theologically conservative and also politically conservative who are, you know, trying to. I mean, they're basically reactionaries. Um, so you see that happening a lot in like mainline American Christianity.
Hmm. Yeah. It's interesting.
Meanwhile, the evangelicals are just moving further and further right.
The,
You know?
the evangelicals are fucking. They all need to be drafted and sent to go join the IDF.
Yeah, for real. They need to see the real world a little bit.
Yeah. Or they could keep playing with snakes until they all get bitten to death.
Hmm.
So, um, so yeah. Um, but when I think of like Christian socialism, I think of like, well, you're not a socialist even, you're a communist, but like there actually is a very strong tradition of economic progressiveness, right? Especially in the black and brown nations. Like
Yes.
MLK would identify as a dim sum, democratic socialist. Like if MLK was alive, he would probably be in DSA. Um, I hate to mention Cornel West. Cornel West isn't a socialist of any type, but like there is a radical black Christian tradition in this country, which makes it all the more ridiculous to see people dumping our religion and then wondering why black people are not rushing to join the left or the hard left in droves because y'all are a bunch of fucking pricks. Like
Yeah.
no, if you're going to like most of us, church for us for black people is a cultural thing. Even if we don't believe everything that we're taught in churches, like I have quite fond memories of going to church as a kid. Every Easter, like, do you wonder why black people wear our best clothes to church? Like, heck,
Yep.
yeah, like go in a black neighborhood any Sunday and go outside of church. You'll see black women wearing beautiful hats, beautiful dresses. Black dudes got their best suits on. Like that's a cultural tradition to us because we work in the fields all day. We didn't have a chance to play dress up. White people can wear that shit every day. We couldn't. So Sunday was our day to see and be seen. And don't let you catch us on fucking Easter. Like it's our tradition.
Yep.
Even like I'm a stone cold atheist. But if I were to go out and get hit by a bus tomorrow, my family would probably still insist on me having a funeral in a church. Why? Because that's our tradition.
Yeah. I feel like, I mean, those hardline atheists, they're not going to read James Cone, right? But
Hey
I
Chris,
think the people who are more inclined to Christianity but don't understand the black church really need to read James Cone's work. Um, One of the things that was so eye-opening to me when I first started reading him was how he talked about how black Americans have this affinity for Easter as a Christian holiday, whereas white Christians tend to be more about Christmas. Christmas is the biggest holiday in like the kind of mainstream white American Christian mindset. But for black Americans, there's this real strong connection to Easter because Easter is connected with Passover, with the Exodus story about liberation from slavery. Those roots go real deep in ways that white people like we can only kind of intellectually understand it, right?
Yeah.
And I really encourage anyone who's watching this to read James Cone.
Yeah, I had a book of his.
He is. I don't want to. I mean, I would never present myself on as a James Cone expert, but I've read most of his books. When I started,
so you're a James Cone expert?
Definitely not. But more than the average person, I would say. When I started getting into liberation, because when you start being in communist spaces and talking about Christianity, people are gonna be like, "Oh yeah, liberation theology, that's cool." Most people have never actually engaged with liberation theology. They just know it as this cool leftist Christianity thing. I actually have a lot of critiques of liberation theology, especially in its Catholic Latin American context. And they're good, they're comradely critiques. They're things I'm saying I support this movement. I think there's some things that could be done better. But when I move past them into Black theology and Cone, all of the issues I had are not present there. Mm-hmm. I think when, especially in an American context, when we think of liberation theology, we should be thinking of Cone and Black theology before Latin American. It's more directly applicable to our circumstances, and I think it's just philosophically and theologically much more powerful.
Yeah, I agree. This Bulgarian dude wants me to rate his rap song.
Bulgarian rap, okay.
I don't speak Bulgarian, but
let's hear it.
Конце носи прерията. Да, твоите май ще върве джерята. Пичи сок, потъпи церята. Но сега знаеш, че обичаме бъглавата. Тя синя червена бродерята. Вайм с гъл, спали с топ салата. Момента не я връзка абоната, кай на виво коми той ще предел дъщерята. Това от нещата и не е в пашата вината, защото аз си ги помпам за без пари. Затова ме боли хуя дали ще стига цената. Ще ги шибам днеска ли, нощеска ли, принцеска ли, гостеска ли. ВМК ще го взима феска ли. Видя хора, вайм феска ли.
I imagine you are saying something very profound in your language, but it is unfortunate that I do not speak your language. But it goes pretty hard. It kind of hit me like a ton of bricks, but I hear you Eastern European types like stuff hitting you like a ton of bricks. Anyways, so I guess I'll give it an 8 out of 10. Thank you for your go-getter attitude, having a random black Twitch streamer and his weirdo friend from Chicago rate your music.
You gotta grind when you're a small-time musician. You gotta get views anywhere you can.
Yeah, that is true. So back to the Hunan document. So this is how Mao did propaganda against superstition and religiousness among peasants. He says, if you believe in the 8 characters, you hope for good luck. If you believe in geomancy, you hope to benefit from the location of your ancestral graves. This year, within the space of a few months, the local tyrants, evil gentry, and corrupt officials have all toppled from their pedestals. Is it possible that until a few months ago they all had good luck and enjoyed the benefit of well-sited ancestral graves, while suddenly in the last few months their luck has turned and their ancestral graves have ceased to exert a beneficial influence? The local tyrants and evil gentry jeer at your peasant association and say, "How odd, today the world is a world of committeemen. Look, you can't even go to take a piss without bumping into a committeeman." Quite true, the towns and the villages, the trade unions and the peasant associations, the Kuomintang and the Communist Party, all without exception have their executive committee members. It is indeed a world of committeemen. But is this due to the 8 characters and the locations of the ancestral graves? How strange. The 8 characters of all the poor wretches in the countryside have suddenly turned auspicious, and their ancestral graves have suddenly started exerting beneficial influences. The gods. Worship them by all means. But if you only had Lord Kwan and the Goddess of Mercy and no peasant association, could you have overthrown the local tyrants and evil gentry? The gods and goddesses are indeed miserable objects. You have worshipped them for centuries, and they have not overthrown a single one of your local tyrants or your evil gentry for you. Now you want to have your rent reduced. Let me ask, how will you go about it? Will you believe in the gods or the peasant association? My words made the peasants roar with laughter. So don't go in too hard. Don't go in being like, oh, yeah, you're an idiot if you believe in God or if you believe in Allah, because that's just going to set people against you. Like, communists need to learn how to talk to people. I've been saying this like for years. Communists need to learn how to talk to people, especially people who have really nothing but their religion to fall back on. Like, why do we think that the Nation of Islam has been so successful in recruiting people in prisons? Because these people are on their last fucking leg. So, of course, they're going to go and they're going to recruit people who are extremely desperate because that's all they have left. Then next thing you know, they're talking about mother wheels and Christian being made by Yaqub and all of these other ridiculous things. Right?
Yeah. I mean, religious groups, as vaporous as we might think it is, especially when we're talking about like an afterlife or whatever, these religions, they are offering people something, right? And when communists go and try to radicalize people, what are we actually offering them? A track record of not getting much done in this country, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the religions, you know, they're bringing you into a community. They're promising you, in a lot of cases, material support, whatever critiques you can make of that. There's a reason that they have millions of members, and you could probably fit all of the hardcore communists in America into like one NFL stadium.
Shit. And there'd still be hundreds of seats left over.
Yeah. It would be like a Bears game.
Yeah, try a decently large. Why does everybody from Chicago hate the Bears? I have a coworker from Chicago, and he thinks that like all of the racist Polish people who used to live in Cicero but got run out by the Mexicans, those are your Bears fans.
That's kind of how I feel about Cubs fans, honestly. I mean, the Bears suck. That's a big part of it. And they're trying to leave the city. They're trying to extort more money out of the city, or else threatening to move out to the suburbs.
Oh, that's what the fucking Rams basically did to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, they went back to fucking they left us and went back to LA. And like that's the team I grew up with. Like I grew up during the golden years of the Rams. And my uncle actually helped build the it used to be Trans World Dome, but now it's the Edward Jones Dome. But my uncle actually helped build the dome down there. Like that was our pride and joy for like years. And then they just
Does it still get used for anything, or is it just like?
Oh yeah, they use it for events and stuff like that. I think Beyonce was down there a couple months ago.
Okay.
Yeah, it's basically right up the street from my job. But you've been to St. Louis, you saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like it's at least we have a pretty dope soccer stadium. Like I guess STL is basically forced to become a soccer city now. Actually, like I don't know what it is with Catholics and soccer, but STL is actually one of the biggest soccer cities in the country.
Is it really?
Yeah, and we're also one of the most Catholic cities in the country. Like we're basically the Vatican on the Mississippi. Yeah. So
is the Catholicism because of that French influence?
French, Irish, Italian, and Southern Germans, I think. Bavarians are very Catholic.
You guys got an Italian immigration?
You've never been to the Hill?
No,
I've got a book. Hold on. I've got a book about fuck. I've got a book about you guys. Look.
Wow.
Gangs of St. Louis.
Oh, gangs, of course. Did an Italian person found emos? Because if so, it's officially real pizza, and we have to accept it.
Yeah, what did you think that the Italians were gonna let a black guy be like, "Hey, look, my name is fucking Leroy Macaroni. I'm going to start a pizzeria." Of course, an Italian started it.
One of my favorite pizza places in here is founded by a black guy in Chicago. Actually, a lot of the best pizza places here are owned by Mexicans.
Oh wow, and the Italians haven't burned them down. Y'all have gotten soft. Anyway,
Yeah, well, the Italians all mostly moved to a suburb
yeah,
where they can
let them make the
drink
shitty
their coffee and
pizzas. Who
be
gives a
racist.
fuck?
Yeah,
Let them make the shitty
I actually
pizzas.
agree.
But yeah. This actually, Egan's Rats. I think they were mostly Irish. They talk very little about the black gangs. Like the black gangs came later. So we also had we had a mob here. I think one of them had the last name Bomarito, and they actually sell cars now. But yeah, the STL mob is basically a bunch of old men that sit in the back rooms on the hill drinking espresso and playing cards.
That's what it is in Chicago now too.
Yeah,
Like the Chicago Outfits is still around technically, but they kind of just run money like through black gangs. They have their fingers in a couple of black gangs, and they just like skim money off the top, and otherwise they're a bunch of octogenarians sitting around, just watching off of society.
Because see, like the mob is it's an urban thing. So you live fucking 45 minutes out, you're not gonna be able to run shit. Shit, the black people, the Puerto Ricans, the Mexicans, the Russians in New York, they're right fucking there. So I mean, the only place I would say that the mob still has influence is in New York.
Yeah, but New York, Jersey, I guess Rhode Island still has a little bit of a of an active mob.
Yeah. You know, after 9/11, the fucking five families jacked up the price of construction materials.
That doesn't surprise me at all. Yeah, I mean that's really the thing about them is any little way that they can eke money out of something, they'll do it. Yeah. You know, it's not they can't get away with I mean, I can in some places, but it's not so much about protection rackets anymore or big drug shipments. It's just about trying to scam people and
they're big into securities fraud, and they're big into credit card fraud. And they were actually I think right before 9/11 they were working with the Russians to skim off the gas tax in New York. But they've basically just like the Irish were left and went to the suburbs in the 50s like the Italians did too. So to fill that vacuum, you've got black and Latino and Russian gangs. How the fuck do we start talking about organized crime? I guess that's a
Chicago and St. Louis.
I guess that's a side interest to both of us.
Yeah. I have interest. I've heard the mob, Italian especially, and some Irish gangs referred to as the lumpen bourgeoisie. Do you agree with that term?
I would use the term lumpen bourgeoisie to refer to people like Chapo, like the big cartel leaders, because they made their millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, even billions of dollars illegally, right? But if they're smart, most of these guys end up in jail forever or getting killed. But those that survive, they survive by becoming legitimate bourgeoisie. They survive by buying into banks, buying into clubs. There's been quite a few black gangsters who have done this. Yeah. The way you get caught as a gangster, mobster, whatever the fuck you want to call yourself, is for one being fucking stupid. Just flow showing your money around like these dudes do nowadays, or killing people and leaving bodies laying around to piss off the average American, the average person in general doesn't have any problem with organized crime as long as it doesn't disrupt their lives.
Start killing people.
Yeah, people are gonna gamble, people are gonna do drugs. People are going to, during Prohibition, the average American, they tolerated people like Al Capone and Waxy Gordon because these people brought them something that they wanted. But as soon as they started killing each other, massacring each other in the streets, all that public enemy shit, and Hoover started running his mouth, then you had a problem. Yep. So same thing today. People know that criminals exist. People know that lumpen proletarians exist. Hell, we're communists. If we ever get this fucking revolutionary warfare shit going, we're going to be fucking criminals and lumpen. Sakai actually talks about that in his book. I don't know if you've read it, the Mauzi's Revolutionary Laboratory in the Dangerous Class.
I haven't read that book. I've only read Settlers by him, so.
Oh, man.
I I need to. I know.
Have you read False Nationalism, False Internationalism?
No.
Oh man, you got to get some reading together.
You gotta remember, I've been in grad school for like the past 4 years straight, so I've been reading all kinds of nonsense for that.
Oh dear.
Just reading communist literature in during my breaks and stuff.
Oof da. But yeah, those are two good ones by him. But I'm going to because I'm eventually going to do a stream talking about like what we just talked about, and Sakai's the Revolutionary Laboratory, Mauzi's Revolutionary Laboratory. It's like two books. It's like a comic book. You reverse it, and then it's another book. So the Dangerous Class, like it asserts that basically like Marx never really had a proletariat job in his life. Like this dude hung out of the library all day and mooched off of Engels. Right. Engels was an outright bourgeois, and like Lenin and the Bolsheviks. Like, okay, these people were like they were under the Tsar and his Okhrana. Like, you think they were going to allow Lenin to practice as a lawyer and make a shitload of money? Like, no. That's how come they had to start robbing banks and stuff, because they could not have, like, Stalin, all of them. If you were, like, a known high-level Bolshevik, they weren't going to allow you to have a fucking job. They wanted you to starve to death. They wanted your wife to leave you. They wanted your kids to leave you. So, same thing. Like, Mao, his original People's Army was mostly bandits. Mm-hmm. So... Maoists have a shitty habit of either valorizing the lumpen, basically seeing them as the answer to all of our prayers, which is stupid. That's a nice way to get yourself killed. And then two, shitting on the lumpen and thinking that we're going to get a bunch of college nerds like you and me together and just go into these bad neighborhoods and just start shooting up the place. That's also a good way to get yourself killed by either the police or the people that you're trying to take out. So we have to be... Yeah, like we have to be dialectical with, because I don't want to be faced out of the fucking alley bleeding out of my eyeballs. That's a horrible, nasty way to go, and I don't think you do either. Especially you, because you've got kids. Anyways, how do we even get on this topic of discussion?
You put two people who read too many books together in a conversation.
That's why
we talk about anything.
That's why Mao said to read too many books is harmful. So... As you know, I've joined DSA. You haven't joined DSA yet because you're a dogmatist. But what do you think of stuff like this?
Maoist caucus started, and maybe I'll consider it.
Yeah, y'all are really trying to kill me. Look, I do not succeed when I start orgs. I'm pretty sure you can attest to that. But I was joking. Sometimes my orgs end up fairly well, but.
I definitely don't have as negative opinion of DSA as I did a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
When I was kind of, you have to go through that like entry level Maoist stage where you just hate everyone who's not a Maoist, and then you lighten up and you're like, okay, I can be a grown up. I think, I don't know, like in Chicago we have several DSA like elected officials on the city level, and there's they have a pretty big presence in this city, so like a lot of my opinions of them are conditioned by that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same thing in STL. The president of our board of aldermen is a DSA member. Magnolia agreed.
Okay.
Our congresswoman is a DSA member. Cori Bush.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Cori Bush. Yeah, how's she doing?
Cori Bush is actually, after Rashida Tlaib, she has had the most principled position on the Palestine question in Congress. They're actually trying to primary her. Like, they're funding this the county prosecutor, Wes Bell. He came into office fancying himself a progressive, and he got elected because he wasn't Bob McCulloch, and he hasn't done anything. He's just an empty suit. And now first he was running for Senate, right? He was trying to get a Senate seat, I think he was running against a guy named Lucas Kuntz. You there? You muted.
So I muted myself so that I wouldn't like.
Oh yeah, echo. But he stopped his Senate campaign so that he could run against Cori Bush. So my conspiracy theory about that is that he knew that Cori Bush's position on Palestine was going to get her in trouble. So he's an opportunist. He's going to
Did this
jump.
just happen? Like recently, he ended his Senate campaign to do that.
Yeah, look, I'll show you. See, Wesley Bell drops out of Senate race, jumps into primary against Democrat Cori Bush. This was October 30th.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, do you think that because here one of our DSA aldermen is, I think, the only one in the city council to like verbally express support for Palestine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering, and she got pushed back for that. I'm wondering if you think that we're going to see these DSA politicians, and even not necessarily in DSA, but these progressive elected officials who have expressed support for Palestine. Do you think there's going to be a nationwide pushback?
Oh yeah, the Democrats, because see, people like to talk a lot of shit about DSA, not knowing like how our politics work. Like we do not receive any money from the Democrats. Like we have no formal ties to the Democratic Party whatsoever. But okay, let's be real. Like these people who are running for office, they're pragmatists. You compare our electeds, right? People who actually have won political seats, okay? Cori Bush, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, all of these people. Like, the alternative is to run as a fucking, as a what? Like, who is Cori Bush supposed to run under? Like, is she supposed to run as a Democrat and actually have a chance of winning? Or is she supposed to run with the Green Party or PSL or any of these other third parties that, well, sure, they've got semi-decent lines. They're hardcore communists or hardcore progressives, but they don't stand a snowball's chance in hell of winning. And sometimes, like,
that's true though, even at like the like a city level, even when you're talking about something like a city council or things like that, I think those are the places where someone like PSL or the Green Party might have more of a real shot if they acted more seriously. I think both of those parties are bad examples.
Yeah, like that's what I would honestly advise. Honestly, I don't give a shit about what happens to PSL, but like if I were advising them, like I would tell them, look, why the fuck are you running for fucking president? Like why?
Yeah.
Why? Do you actually think like why are you running for something that you're not going to win? But if you run for, say, mayor of Kenosha, Wisconsin, or mayor like Bernie, Bernie came to prominence. He was mayor of Burlington, Vermont for years. Like St. Louis, I could easily see a DSA member winning the mayor's seat here. Shit, I could see a ham sandwich defeating Tish Jones for mayor. Like,
I mean, times we've got Brandon Johnson's not in DSA or anything, but he's definitely like of a similar politics as like the more right wing of DSA, right? Mm-hmm. So it's definitely possible even at that level.
Yeah, most of our electeds, like, we're not electing the hard left. Most of the electeds that we have are like center right to centrist in leftist terms. Like we're not electing hardcore leftists to Congress because like okay, say they run somebody like me for Congress, okay? Like I'm not going to get elected because they're going to pull up all my tweets. They're going to pull up
especially that H tweet where you hope that H wins.
They're going to pull up
disqualified you.
They're going to pull up yes. They're going to pull up all my videos. Like the only thing that I would have a chance of winning is maybe an automatic seat. Because like people that vote for aldermen in St. Louis, they don't give a fuck. They just care. They just care if you're gonna get their roads fixed.
But like, that's what I'm saying though. So do you think not even DSA, but something like the Green Party or PSL? Let's say that we have the Green Party, but they're more serious because the Green Party is kind of a joke, right?
Yeah.
Imagine a party like the Green Party, but they're a little bit more serious. and they start winning aldermanic races in cities like Chicago or St. Louis, or like even like village council seats in like smaller towns, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then is there a way to snowball those really minor electoral victories into bigger things over time? That's the path that I could see.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, we have to actually demonstrate socialist governance. Like, because the average American, black, white, Latino, whatever, the average American thinks that when they think of socialism or communism, they think of Pol Pot. They think of knock at the door in the middle of the night. Okay, whole family going to the gulag. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Like, that's what they think. They don't see socialists as being the people who are going to give them universal health care. They don't see socialists as being the people that are going to eradicate their student debt. They don't see socialists as being the people who are not going to take their house, but actually give them their house without mortgage and without rent. We have to, like, and these edge lords on the internet talking about militarized parties and like shit that they don't even understand. Like, that doesn't really help our optics, especially as Maoists. Like, people hear Maoist, they see fucking edgelord.
Yeah. Well, I guess my only thing would be I believe it's possible to talk about the need for a militarized party and for that kind of action in a way that doesn't come across as just being a loser edgelord online. And I don't even talk about that kind of stuff online very much because, I mean, if you're posting that shit on Twitter, you're always going to come across like a loser.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not the forum for it. That's just like edgy, angry people trying to vent and get their echo chambers to affirm, what they already believe. But I don't know. I would like at least to see how it would go over if someone who was a more serious human being who like knew how to effectively communicate those ideas was to try delivering that message to a larger, more mainstream audience, either as part of an electoral campaign or something else. I don't know, but not coming across like an edgelord online.
Yeah.
I think it's possible. I would at least like to see it tried.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to, the ending of the Communist Manifesto is the communists' disdain to conceal our aims. I think we should trust the working class enough that if the ideas are presented the right way and if they're backed up by the actions of people who are like serious political actors and not, people like RGA or PSL or the Green Party, for example, that they might take a little more of a thought to it than just thinking, oh, they're like Pol Pot.
Yeah. Yeah. So going back to what I was saying, I definitely see like the Democrats trying to run all of our elections out, but that's what happens when you like they're not going to do shit for you as long as you like just sit there and toe the line. But as soon as you break the line on an issue like the fact that Gaza is currently being turned into rubble, and like the harassment of Rashida Tlaib is especially insidious. Like they censured her. The only Palestinian, that would be like censuring Cori Bush after George Floyd got murdered by the police because Cori Bush had a momentary PR lapse and said, fuck the police.
Right.
Like, why would you do that? Like, what is the image that is being sent? And now people are trying to actually vote blue no matter who, Palestinians. Like, honestly, Palestinians are probably going to say, fuck the Democratic Party. Are they all going to vote for Trump? No. Are some of them going to vote for Trump? Probably. But, like...
And, I mean, there's nobody to blame for that but Biden and the other Democratic leadership who... I mean, I get the real politic of it where it's like, what do they expect us to do? Send troops in to stop the IDF from massacring Gaza? Obviously, that's never going to happen. But I don't see Biden, demanding that Biden at least verbally call for a ceasefire. I don't understand why that's such an unrealistic ask to a lot of these vote blue no matter who people.
Yeah. And I have critiques of like phone banking and stuff like that. For one, I'm not a fan of playing on the phone. I understand people are going to probably clip this and be like, oh, look, BRG is afraid to order a pizza. But like, I just don't like, these people have, who are they going to listen to? The people who give them millions and millions and millions of dollars, or me and you calling them playing on their phone during our lunch hour. Like,
Yeah.
that doesn't happen. I mean, it's a good tactic. The only way I see stuff like that working is, say you've got a small landlord, right? Illegal eviction. Okay? You round up 500 people, or 5,000 people from around the country to all call in and fuck up their line. That's how you you could get results that way. But the fucking White House, no. Like, I don't see that having any, like, people have been calling up there for weeks now, right? And what did Biden do the other?
Protesting outside the gates, like showing up in person too.
Yeah.
Even, and they don't give a shit.
Yeah, like what did Biden say? A reporter asked him, like, Mr. President, what do you think the possibility of a ceasefire with Israel? Oh, no chance, no way. Like,
He doesn't care.
Yeah, no, he doesn't give a fuck.
Because when calling your representative or protesting outside the White House, if you're doing those things, but you are all. But by the way, I'm still gonna vote for you. Like, I'm gonna vote for you no matter what. But
Yeah.
Please do this.
Now, that politician quit listening as soon as you said. I'm going to vote for you. Like,
Yeah,
that's what they want. That's what they want.
That's all they care about. That's the only possible leverage that any person like you or I, any regular person, has over them. And it's not.
Wait, hold up. I'm an online celebrity. I'm not a regular person. See,
Okay,
I've got proof.
That's true. I saw that tweet. Don't get your politics from online celebrities like me.
Yeah, I'm in the same category as Dr. R and Hassan Piker now.
You've made it.
I've made it. Mansion, here I come.
So I do. It's not nothing. You can potentially, if you yell about it enough on Twitter, you might convince a few people to either vote for or not vote for a politician. And that's, but it still does come down to influencing those votes, right? None of us have millions of dollars that we're going to be able to use to leverage a politician's platform.
Look at this. One of my anarchist friends sent me this. It's a Kurdish nasheed.
Okay.
So, reject communism, return to Islamic theocracy, aka Iran.
Yeah, that's a compelling message.
DSA.
Is that the DSA Maoist caucus proposed insignia?
No, that is the Red Army faction. I don't really get along with them. They're Foucaultist types.
Okay.
But I'm probably going to get shot for saying that. We don't have
And
a fucking.
you guys got all types in DSA.
No, people just make up these random things.
Yeah.
This is the DFLP. They're like, people keep calling them Maoists, but I don't think they're like MLMs. I think they're heavily MZT inspired. Good song. Good song, though.
Yeah, I listened to it when you posted it.
Those looks like the uniforms that the Americans used in the first Gulf War.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, if you're fighting in like a desert area, that's what your camouflage uniforms are going to look like.
I wonder where they got it from. They probably got it from a fucking army surplus store in Dearborn. I thought the resistance didn't want democracy. But here, it literally in one of the songs, "Our Democracy, O Crown of the Left."
Why would we do a thing like listen to what they actually say?
Yeah. They're all Hamas. I really love how like poetic Arabic is as a language.
Yeah, my favorite version of the International that I listen to is in Arabic.
Can you understand Arabic?
No, not at all.
Why are you listening to songs in a language you can't understand?
Well, I mean, with the International, especially, you don't like. It doesn't matter what language it's in because you know what it's saying, right? But I don't know. I do that a lot. I guess it started for me when I was a little kid and I got really into the Kingdom Hearts video games and was listening to all the Japanese music.
Oh yeah.
Well, music's music, you know.
You ever heard of Soil and Pimp Sessions?
No.
It's like a Japanese jazz funk fusion.
That sounds cool.
Yeah.
Soil and what?
Soil and Pimp Sessions.
I'm gonna check it out when we're done here.
I think you'll like it. I think these guys are famous because they attacked the school bus once.
Okay.
Hold on. DFLP school bus. Yeah, it was the PFLPGC. I could have sworn. Yeah.
Oh, it was all the way back in 1970.
Yeah, no, this was that. The Malot massacre.
Okay.
This was them. Yeah, there was an attack that occurred in May of 1974 and involved the hostage taking of 115 Israelis, chiefly school children, which ended in the deaths of 25 hostages and 6 other civilians. 3 armed members of the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine infiltrated Israel from Lebanon. Soon after, they attacked a van, killing 2 Israeli Arab women, blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, well, look, they built a memorial to them in the cemetery. But war is brutal.
Yeah, you hate to to be so flippant about it like that, but when only one half of a war is condemned for its brutality, it's hard. Like, what other response can you have, right? Like, yeah, it's brutal to, I don't know, take hostages and kill some hostages, but it's not brutal to launch that fucking blade missile into civilian areas.
Yeah. I also love how each and every one of these political parties in Palestine has an armed wing.
I mean, yeah, when you're living under military occupation, you got to.
Yeah. This is some pretty hardcore trading. I played this over the speaker at work, but I probably get fired.
I mean, would anyone even know?
I don't know. I don't think anybody wants to hear uh, revolutionary Fedayeen Dabka music.
Yeah, you get one person who speaks Arabic in there, and
Yeah, we've got a couple Muslims, but like I don't think they can thoroughly understand Arabic. So there's this from this account, Palestine Tunes, sharing never before translated PFLP and DFLP media. Glory to the resistance and its revolutionary martyrs. Tighten your belt, comrade. So this account focuses strictly on the communists.
that's cool.
The PFLP has a better logo though. Like I don't like that logo.
Yeah. It's interesting to see how they focus on like how much effort has been put into the propaganda
Yeah,
side of it, not just from them, but also even with Hamas.
yeah.
Like
Like-
how seriously they've taken that as a strategy, as a tactic
Yeah.
in waging this conflict.
Yeah, because I know that like Israel has like professional social media people. Like I saw a video of an obvious Israeli woman who spoke some like not even the dialect of Arabic that they speak in Palestine. Apparently, this lady spoke Syrian Arabic, and they had like even just from watching the videos and from not being able to understand a word of either Hebrew or Arabic other than Assalamu alaikum. But I could like literally understand that this was an Israeli because like you could tell the difference between the two accents. And they
Yeah.
had this lady with who was dressed up as a doctor, clean. Now keep in mind this lady was supposed to be at a hospital that has been bombed for a week, right? Al Shifa Hospital. Clean white doctor's jacket, clean stethoscope, electricity in the hospital, like lights just on for the hell of it, not like we're working at flashlights in generators that might have like a piss of fuel left. Like, no, like my house, we've got lights on.
Yeah.
So this was obviously in Israel, and she was just standing up there, like pleading, like, "Oh, Hamas is killing, they're stealing all the food, and they just killed a kitty cat that had cancer, also. Oh no!"
Yeah.
And like, I'm like, bruh, like, so Israel is doing that shit, and a lot of morons in the West believe this shit. So that's why, that's what the comrades in Palestine like. They have to do stuff like this. Plus, this is morale building. Like, yeah, they can come and they can come and they come, but here we are. We're still the baddest boys on the block. So it serves a double-edged sword. It's the same reason why the Panthers wore black leather, berets, boots, and carried shotguns, because it looked cool. It made the kids on the block want to be them. And many of the kids on the block did end up being them.
It makes it when you look at them, like they wanted you to immediately know that's a Black Panther, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of, there's this idea that you see where, oh, like online isn't real life and get off of social media. And like, definitely there's some truth to that. Online communists definitely need to touch grass.
Man, if the original Black Panther Party was still alive today, they would be all over the internet.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have to, it's not something that we can just ignore or not engage with.
Yeah.
I think that communists need to get better about engaging with it much more productively. And I do think that like a lot of the streams you've been doing lately, because I've been watching most of them, like they're a step in that direction. But the people who act like, oh, nothing on here is real and we need to completely get off of it, those people are not in reality. And this conflict, like they're waging a war right now, a war of resistance against one of the most powerful and well-funded armies in the region. And they're fucking making these videos and getting on TikTok and doing what they have to do to get their perspective out there and to communicate with the world.
I just saw that 5 IDF troops were killed by a fucking booby trap. Yeah, they tried to climb down into a fucking tunnel, and the tunnel had a booby trap, and it blew up, and it killed all 5 of them.
It's like walking into a saw trap. Like, what do you think's gonna happen? Like, if you enclose... Gaza is smaller than Chicago. like a lot smaller than Chicago.
Shit,
I think it's around the size of St. Louis.
Shit, it's smaller than St. Louis.
Is it? Yeah. And it's got way more people than St. Louis. You know what the population of St. Louis is off the top of your head?
I know the population. Well, the city proper only has around 320,000.
Okay, so there you go.
The metro has around 2 million.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think that's roughly the size of Gaza's population, like 2.5 million. So you've got not just the city proper, because St. Louis city proper is small, but like when you look at the city and the county split, like I think in like 1890s, over tax shit, I think. But like when we talk about the St. Louis metropolitan area, we're talking about the city, which is small, but you've also got the county. The county is like Florissant, Ferguson. Like Ferguson is not in St. Louis city proper. Ferguson is in St. Louis County. Cool Valley, Dalewood. Then you go out to West County. You got the rich suburbs, Chesterfield, Frontenac, Town and Country, Baldwin is actually pretty like petty bourgeois middle class. I got a bunch of friends that stayed. That's actually where I went to school at, West County. Then going even further out, you've got St. Charles County. Then you got the Metro East, East St. Louis, Fairview Heights, Alton, all that shit out there. So we're basically a metropolitan area that spans 2 states. And even our population, I don't even think like approaches Gaza's. I think Gaza is like 3.5 million or something like that. Of course, they ran half of it down to the southern part, which they're bombing now. But so yeah, you're crowding a huge amount of people into a tiny, because you've been to St. Louis. Like we're not sprawling like Chicago. Like you can walk all day in Chicago and never leave a neighborhood.
Yeah, so I looked it up by square mileage, and Chicago's got like 50% more land area than Gaza City. But we have, I mean, our population is less than 3 million, and Gaza is a little over 2 million, so it's not that much of a population.
Look at this. Dude.
I just saw that someone put in the chat.
Bruh. This is not, they just got their, these people are fighting a war. They just have all of their weapons just stacked up neatly like it's a gun show.
Yeah. Even if we take that seriously, let's pretend that is a real Hamas weapons cache in the Gaza tunnel or whatever. The tweet, the peace flags must be in another room. Who the hell said anything about peace flags? Like, why would you expect that? Nobody is pretending that Hamas is like a peace organization, right? Like, that's such a straw man of why people are sympathetic to the Palestinian cause at all. I don't understand who that argument is meant to convince.
Man, this is just ridiculous. I need to wash my brain of that stuff. I'm going to go watch more Fedayeen music.
Well, and that's one of the crazy things is that Israel, like, they're doing the propaganda too, which we just talked about.
But nobody's believing it.
It's weird how lazy it is. It's bad. It's like garbage. Like, they're getting their like women soldiers out there, like, put makeup on and dress up like a Barbie.
And those aren't even real soldiers. Those are models that they've hired those people to wear. They've hired those people to wear IDF uniforms. Yeah, you see it.
Or she is in the IDF, but she works behind a desk, you know?
Yeah.
Like, either way.
I'm going to make a playlist of this. These are bangers.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to throw them on my, like, revolutionary music playlist for sure.
You want your kids to grow up to be Fedayeen?
There's worse things to grow up. As we've seen.
This is a PFLP documentary.
عاد الأمين العام للجبهة الشعبية لتحرير فلسطين أبو علي مصطفى إلى أرض الوطن عام 1999 حاملا شعاره الشهير عدنا لنقاوم على الثوابت لا نساوم، ومؤكدا على مبدأ المقاومة وحماية الثوابت الوطنية.
هذه هي المعركة المفتوحة، ومن يظن أن زمن المقاومة قد ولى وحل مكانه زمن التسوية فهو مخطئ. فما دام الاحتلال لا زال قائما على الأرض بشكله الاستيطاني أو العسكري، فالمقاومة حق مشروع للشعب الفلسطيني.
مع بدايات انتفاضة الأقصى برز الدور الفاعل لقوات المقاومة الشعبية، الجناح العسكري للجبهة الشعبية لتحرير فلسطين، عبر العديد من العمليات النوعية وتفجير العبوات الناسفة والسيارات المفخخة في مختلف المدن الصهيونية لتزرع.
So one thing about the PFLP, they actually got their start. Like, they became famous. If you know who Layla Khaled is, they are, well, they used to be in the 70s, very well known for hijacking airplanes. Like, that was their thing.
She's still alive, right?
Yeah, she, I think she hangs out around ILPS a lot. I went to an ILPS conference, and I think she sent in a recorded message in solidarity. But yeah, Layla is still alive. Major inspiration. Not saying I'm going to run down the Lambert and hijack a plane.
Those days, I think, are over since 9/11.
Yeah, nice way to get a bullet in your fucking hand.
أدرك المجرم شارون أن وجود القائد أبو علي يشكل خطرا كبيرا على الكيان الصهيوني، لأنه من أكبر الدعاة إلى مقاومة الاحتلال الصهيوني وتنفيذ العمليات ومهاجمة جنوده. وفي 27 من آب من العام 2001، بينما كان الرفيق أبو علي على رأس عمله في مكتب الجبهة الشعبية في مدينة رام الله، غير آبه للتهديدات الصهيونية باغتياله، انطلقت الطائرات الصهيونية أمريكية الصنع لتطلق حمم صواريخها الحاقدة باتجاه المكتب الذي يتواجد فيه الرفيق أبو علي مصطفى، ليرتقي على الفور شهيدا في عملية إجرام صهيونية جديدة يرتكبها الاحتلال البشع طالت أرفع مسؤول سياسي فلسطيني حتى ذلك الوقت.
الفلسطينيين والكوادر الفلسطينيين.
أبو علي تم انتخاب الرفيق القائد أحمد سعدات أمينا عاما للجبهة الشعبية ليظهر في أول خطاب له بعد توليه الأمانة العامة للجبهة ويعلن عن مبدأ العين بالعين والرأس بالرأس.
أن نستحق احترام شعبنا، شهدائه من قادته، أطفاله وشيوخه ونسائه. إذا لم يكن شعارنا العين بالعين،
an eye for an eye, a tooth for tooth, and a head for a head, it doesn't make the whole world blind and wins you your liberation. What do you think of that as a Christian?
Well, I don't know. I try to take it like as part of the larger question about Christian violence or violence in general. But
because Christians have been very violent people in the past. Like,
yeah,
not paragons of peace.
It's very interesting to talk about like how they have tried to square that circle in different ways. Mm-hmm. When Jesus says, you know, you've heard it said an eye for an eye, but I say to you, like love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. I think there's a very like clear historical context that was set in, and trying to like universalize that as like a command to like always be peaceful and let people oppress you is a huge mistake. I definitely, you already know, but I of course support the right of all oppressed people to fight back using any means necessary.
That differentiates you from many Christians who seem to be extreme and unequivocal pacifists.
Yeah, I think for all of,
وفي يوم 17 من أكتوبر
well, like I said, I'm not necessarily your typical example of a Christian or a Christian communist even.
Yeah.
But
There's a
like, go ahead.
so
عام
no,
2001
they're talking about on October 17th, they actually did something amazing.
40 يوما فقط من اغتيال أبو علي انطلق الرفيق الاستشهادي البطل فؤاد أبو
To in the chat, Magic City Murals, a different part of the Bible says beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears and stir up every warrior. So the Bible contains both. It's dialectical that way.
ليفجر الرفيق فؤاد حزامه
And that's in the book of Joel if you want to go read it.
في موقع ناحي العوز يكن أول استشهادي من وحدة الاستشهاديين التابعة لكتائب الشهيد أبو علي مصطفى.
I kind of see it as Mao's statement about how in order to abolish the gun, we have to pick up the gun.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely also if you all are watching this, you all should subscribe to this comrade. I've used his work in a previous stream of mine when I was talking about Africa before colonization, but he's actually from the continent, and as we know, African Americans were seen as being like the leaders of black people because we tend to be like we're the richest group of black people in the world. So we have to use that I guess that privilege that we have because like when you think of black people anywhere in the world, you think of rap music, you think of our clothes, you think of African American culture, right? So Africans from the continent tend to be ignored, and so you got this comrade Bamis who released a really good video about Liberia 15 hours ago, which I highly recommend you watch. And he only has 6.36 thousand subscribers. So really appreciate if we can get him some more. There's a really good song about what happened on October 17th, 2001. So they basically went into this hotel and murdered this Zionist extremist in retaliation for a targeted Israeli bombing of their leadership. Che Guevara. The Palestinian Authority arrests 2 members of the Palestinian National Council, PFLP, all respected the heroes who executed the heroic operation on October 17th. Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine.
أقسم الأمين العام هدد أحمد سعدات أقسم الأمين العام هدد أحمد سعدات استنفار النصور لا جمع المعلومات استنفار النصور لا جمع المعلومات عن وزارة إسرائيل عن وزارة الموت عن وزارة إسرائيل عن وزارة الموت في ذكرى الأربعين سقطت ورقات التوت في ذكرى الأربعين سقطت ورقات التوت
17 أكتوبر ثغرة كتيب الصوت 17 أكتوبر ثغرة
I love how, like, this isn't the first song that I've heard from the Palestinian resistance like this, but they literally kill somebody and then they do a song bragging about it. Like that's the they're really really good at diss tracks.
Isn't that kind of what John Brown's body is?
Pretty much. Or marching through Georgia.
خطط مجدي خطط واقتحم الأوتيلات خطط مجدي خطط واقتحم الأوتيلات كتائب أبو علي جوازات مزورات كتائب أبو علي جوازات مزورات الأسمر والقرعان ردادوا بأعلى صوت الأسمر والقرعان ردادوا بأعلى صوت يا زئف الحقير والله إيجاك الموت يا زئف الحقير والله إيجاك.
Extremely poetic language. Oh, vile Zeevi, by God, death has reached you. Some anime shit.
17 اكتوبر ثغرة كتيم الصوت 17 اكتوبر ثغرة كتيم الصوت في فندق ريجنسي نفذ قرار الموت في فندق ريجنسي نفذ قرار الموت.
Also, Israelis really, really hate when you throw stones at them. Just an idea for, in case you run into some Zionist counter-protesters at your next pro-Palestine march. Give them a taste of home. I'm also really obsessed with this genre of music now. It's like disco, but not disco.
I don't even know what you call it.
It's Dabka.
Okay.
Dabke.
كان الخبر الأول في كل الإذاعات كان الخبر الأول في كل الإذاعات كتائب أبو علي تحترف الاغتيالات كتائب أبو علي
So we murdered your tourism minister and now we are skilled assassins.
تحترف الاغتيالات في الصفحات الأولى معارف ويديعون في الصفحات الأولى معارف ويديعون كانت صورة كبيرة.
They actually have a newspaper in Israel called Idiot. Let's go get a copy of The Idiot.
في التابوت كانت صورة كبيرة لزقة في التابوت لجلك عيمة مبروك حدينا الدبابات لجلك عيمة مبروك حدينا الدبابات طلقة من مسدس قنص المخابرات طلقة من مسدس قنص المخابرات رد النصر سريع ما انتظروا ثاني يوم رد النصر سريع ما انتظروا ثاني يوم كتائب أبو علي جابوا الطار المحتوم كتائب أبو علي جابوا الطار المحتوم
17 اكتوبر ثغرة كتيم الصوت 17 اكتوبر ثغرة كتيم الصوت في فندق ريجنسي نفذ قرار الموت في فندق ريجنسي نفذ قرار الموت.
Good song. So I guess we can start to wrap up, Christian, because I know you have other things to do besides sit and listen to my little jibes. But
It's been a good time. I could do this all night.
I imagine you can, but unfortunately, I don't have all night.
No, I know.
My clients would be very upset at me. What you mean you was up all night talking to somebody on the internet? I'm trying to become a professional content creator. Anyways.
So I can leave this place.
Yes. So what do you think of stuff like this? This is a DSA project Emergency Tenant Organizing Committee. The Emergency Tenant Organizing Committee program is an ambitious plan to build an outward-facing tenant unionization effort by training and mentoring DSA members and their comrades participating in tenant organizing all across the United States. The tenant unions that we construct must build organized tenant militancy and capacity as we leverage our working class power and everyday struggles against landlords, developers, and other real estate capitalists. The program has 3 steps: intake, training, and mentorship. So, ETOC's reach in 2022, there were 65 DSA chapters represented, 200 people attended the training weekend, there were 14 mentorship cohorts, and there were 6 new tenants unions created. So, what do you think of that?
I mean, it's cool. Tenant union organizing is, I think it's in this weird place because I haven't seen any big wins yet from any of the organizers that I know are doing it, but I've seen more and more kind of effort go into it the past few years from organizations from DSA to like more radical Maoist groups who've started to engage with it. So I think that like with more and more energy being put towards it, I'm hoping that we will start to see like some more useful test cases. And I think it's really important for people to write summations and like deliver summations of the work that they do in it. Because it's, I don't know. I mean, my great grandfather was a tenant organizer in Chicago, and it hasn't like, the issues have not changed in like 60 years with landlords and housing. But so I think that our tactics need to be iterated on. So I think an initiative like that is very cool to see. I hope it bears some fruits, or at least some useful like theory or organizing like advice can be pulled from it.
Yeah, and like there's a lot of militancy. Like the common Maoist lore, if you will, around DSA is that like people think that DSA is a bunch of electoralists or a bunch of soft ass punks, right? But like look, they walked up on a landlords were holding a party to celebrate this is Berkeley, by the way, one of the most expensive rental markets. Like San Francisco, the Bay Area in general is one of the most expensive rental markets. Unnecessarily expensive, by the way. Like years ago, like in the 60s, like the reason that so many hippies went out to San Francisco and Oakland and Berkeley was because San Francisco was relatively cheap.
Yeah.
Like LA used to be pretty cheap. Shit, you could find a shithole neighborhood in New York to live in back in the 60s or the 50s. Like that's why like people were that's why so much good art came out of those periods, right? Because somebody like you or me could afford to be like, you know what? Fuck this grind. I'm just going to take this $500 and I'm going to move to San Francisco and see what's popping
and live
out there
for months off of that.
Yeah, like they had boarding houses, they had rooming houses. You could literally rent a room in a beautiful Victorian for like $50 a month. You try that shit now.
Out of a van, right? And there were more public amenities that you could use to actually have a somewhat decent standard of living and not necessarily get kicked out.
Yeah, but now some of those hippies that went out there got rich. Like they invested in Microsoft, they invested in Apple, they invested in all of these things. And they were like, and you figured they would be sympathetic because, I mean, yeah, they moved out there from Boston in a fucking hippie van and they spent half the trip high off of acid and they got pickpocketed by, I don't know, the band of merry tricksters or whatever those idiots call themselves. And then they hung around the Maoist cult for a little bit until they got beat up in the middle of a struggle session. And then they ended up homeless. So you figured they would sympathize, but they, like Silicon Valley and all that shit, that made San Francisco basically unlivable for the working class. Like San Francisco used to have a very large queer working class.
Yeah.
Berkeley, very large working class of students. Like if Huey and Bobby were in Oakland nowadays, in the neighborhood that they had their first office in, they wouldn't be able to afford the rent. They'd have to do Zoom meetings. But anyways, they had the landlords had an event to celebrate the ability to resume evictions, and they turned up. They had a community rally and a picket.
It's good to expose these people, these landlords, and I also think that tenant organizing is a very good opportunity to kind of draw people's attention to the contradiction between landlord and tenant, and then by proxy to the contradiction between people who own property and people who don't. So it's a very good like vector for class struggle because fucking everybody hates their fucking landlord. Like you could be the most like right-wing person on earth, you still fucking hate your landlord because landlords just suck and everybody knows it.
Can't pay the rent? Can't pay the rent? No problem. Get the hell out and buy a tent.
Yeah, right. Well, there you go. That's a landlord. And then they'll complain about the tent cities, you know?
There was a tent. There was a fucking tent city in my on the lawn of my city hall yeah, and they cleared them out because the fucking vice president came to town. She actually drove right under me on my way to work.
Really?
Yeah, so yeah, first is like, you know how like when they have like one of those pigs come to town, they have like the six
motorcade.
Six cops on the motorcycles. Mm-hmm. And then like it was like basically like 15 limousines and black SUVs.
And you didn't take the shot? What kind of Maoist are you?
Are you trying to get my stream banned, you fucking prick? But yeah, look, solidarity against genocide. Tenants united against genocide. Your average person would be like, oh, what the fuck does not being homeless have to do with shit going on in Palestine? It's all connected. A lot of those landlords have connections to companies that do business with Israel. Block the boat. Yeah, a lot of solidarity going on. So this is what is needed. Like you have to actually like link up with progressive causes across the board. You can't just be like, okay, I'm going to do workers' rights. I'm going to do tenants' rights. This is my thing. And I don't give a fuck about what's going on over there. That's none of my business. No, it is your business because everything is connected.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, can communists afford, if we want to have a revolution in this country, if we want to remake society, can we afford to leave any of these areas like undisturbed, right?
Yeah.
And the answer obviously is no. But at the same time, you got all these communists who you know, they want to stay in their lane, not to get into like lane discourse like that, but like they have their thing that they're interested in or that for whatever reason pulls their attention, and that's and if you're not connecting that, if you're not building coalitions and, you know, working towards a united front, then you're not doing anything.
Yeah. They even did a trick-or-treat event. Yeah, but what you were talking about, lane discourse. Like, I'm so sick of communists fighting over, like, if you're both doing the same thing, like, you all should be able to unite with each other. Like, what the fuck? Who gives a fuck who organized the protest first? I think Frizzo and PSL were fighting over that last week. Like, they're trying. I think Frizzo was accusing PSL of wrecking that little protest or something they were going to do in Chicago. But like,
yeah, I don't even know the details of that.
I'm sure you're familiar with both Frizzo and PSL since they have a big presence in Chicago.
Yes, PSL is a lot more like in your face. Like they want you to know that they are there and that they are PSL. Frizzo is a little more, they're like a little more on the DL with things.
They're on the down low.
I mean, not like for real, but like they're just PSL. They want all the attention on them.
Oh yeah,
and Frizzo is not, at least in Chicago.
Frizzo actually came out of the of a wing that was expelled or left the RCP USA. It was a guy. It was You've read Heavy Radicals. It was Mickey Jarvis and a bunch of other people that got kicked out by Bob Avakian's people, and they ended up forming Frizzo along with a bunch of other like shrunken new communist movement groups. So Frizzo actually has a Maoist heritage. Workers World and PSL actually have a trot heritage. But
which is crazy.
But
Frizzo now they're like boilerplate dingites.
Yeah, but Frizzo actually traces back to the new communist. I guess you could call Frizzo the last of the new communist movement because like their roots go back to the RCP USA.
Well, yeah, I mean the RCP USA is also very active in Chicago.
Oh yeah, that's where the headquarters. I think Bob Avakian lives there.
So are they actually? I had thought that, but I wasn't sure if it was correct. I know where their offices are in Chicago, but I didn't know if that was their national.
Wow, and their offices are still standing. What type of communist are you?
Their offices are actually right in the middle of like the blackest neighborhood in Chicago on the south side. And it's like, I don't know, it's interesting. I used to work down there and like I'd have to pass their offices every day. And it's like they would like come out sometimes and like try to hand out literature to people. And I would always just wonder, I mean, I'm not going to go door to door asking, but I always just wonder like how, like they have big signs everywhere. They're always flyering. How do the people of this neighborhood like view them? Do they do any work in the neighborhood at all? Right. Obviously the answer is no, but,
I mean, every neighborhood has its crazy white people.
Yeah, that's fair. That's probably true. I don't know. I remember I stopped once just to look at one of their flyers, and the guy, he like rushed out of the office and like followed me down the block trying to hand me literature.
You were probably the first interaction that he had all day.
I know. They're like, "Oh my god, a customer."
And you've got the leftist look. Like you look like a radical. That's probably why he was probably trying to recruit you.
Yeah, oh definitely. And I was just like, look, I already know about you guys. Not interested. I mean, there was a one of those police shootings of an unarmed innocent person happened like right down the block from their headquarters a few years ago. And at the protests, that was the only protest. I'm sure they were there somewhere, but that's the only protest in the city that I didn't see them at. The one that happened right outside their headquarters.
They got ran out of Ferguson.
I bet.
Yeah, because they were standing behind all of the militant black kids, and they were trying to get these kids to storm the police station. And while they were standing back behind them like cowards, and then I think they went to a meeting, and somebody, I think D Seals of blessed memory, punched one of them. And another person threw a chair at them, so they got run out.
They're everywhere. They are at every protest in Chicago.
And much. These people
always show up, and it's the same like 3 or 4 of them every time.
Isn't the youngest one of these people has to be fucking 75 years old?
They have, at least they did. They had like a couple people like around our age, but the ones who consistently show up to every protest are definitely like elderly people.
Yeah. Well, maybe you should cough on them while you have COVID. Kill them.
Would never think of it.
Mm-hmm. So, do you have any questions for me?
No, not like, I don't know. I mean, I could ask you a million questions all night, but I don't,
Go ahead.
Don't want to keep up.
Go.
I guess just, I mean, so far, what are the next year? Because I'm thinking like in terms of the 2024 election, what does that look like for being a communist who's trying to organize in an organization like DSA? Because you know that with the election coming up, things are all the energy is going to get sucked towards that.
Oh, yeah. Important thing is to not let Palestine slip to the back burner. And, okay. So as you know, you probably know that I've changed my, I wouldn't say changed, but I've sharpened and developed my position on electoral politics. I already mentioned how the Democrats are trying to primary DSA electeds. So we definitely should give some attention to that. Let's be real, a lot of our clout comes from people like Cori Bush and Rashida Tlaib, and they have caught immense amounts of hate. Same thing. The state assemblyman in New York, Mamdani, like they sent this man a horrible message on his office telephone saying horrible Islamophobic things. So we should definitely have their backs. But at the same time, if we're going to be putting money, time, energy into these campaigns so that these people can continue to hold office, like there has to be a process to hold these people accountable. Like you cannot just vote or present on the Iron Dome and expect unanimous support. And we also should not like allow ourselves to be bullied or condescended to by ourselves. I mean, us communists, us radicals who are in DSA, we should not allow ourselves to be bullied by rightists and centrists or made out to be LARPers or anything like that. Like we basically have to demand that our politics be taken seriously because everything that we have predicted is coming to pass. So if you want the energy that radicals, younger radicals, provide because all the old social democrats are leaving
or dying.
So those people are leaving. So if you want our energy, if you want to continue to benefit from that, like you're going to have to meet us halfway. And if you don't, then like there's going to be more strife and trouble and strife. That's how splits happen. That's how mass resignations happen. Like the whole situation with the Palestine working group, that was mishandled. That was mishandled, and people were acting like they were the bad guys because they left. Like you've taken steps, and like at first I didn't know what the fuck happened, but just from like talking to people and reading threads, I'm like, okay, yeah, like that's a problem. Like if your most militant Palestine solidarity people are have left, that's an issue. Immediately after the biggest news out of that region in a decade or so,
Generation at least.
huh?
I said in a generation at least.
Yeah, in a generation, because I think the first Intifada was in '87. So yeah, we're coming up on a generation. Like if those people are leaving, then you have to make your organization one that that is actually welcoming to those people, because nobody's going to stay in an organization where they're condescended to or talk to any type of way. Like that's part of why I've left a lot of orgs, because like you're not going to talk to me any type of fucking way. And you're going to take my politics seriously. If you treat me like as a LARPer or, oh, he's a big bad Maoist or anything like that, like, come on, man. We're all adults here. We're all trying to
say SPUSA. We know.
Oh yeah, I remember the SPUSA. It was my.
So did you hear what? Just along the lines of what you were saying a minute ago, did you hear what they did to Carlos Ramirez Rosa here in Chicago?
Oh, what happened?
He's a DSA alderman, and he is there. So the right wing elements in this city are trying to repeal Chicago's status as like a welcoming sanctuary city. And apparently Ramirez Rosa was he was trying to do some like old school Chicago politics style dirty tactics to try to stop that from happening. So he was like he was on the zoning board, so he was threatening other aldermen to like withhold zoning money from them if they voted for that. And then the biggest allegation came out. One of the other aldermen accused him of putting his hands on a black woman to stop her from going in to vote.
I got it pulled up. The Chicago Automatic Black Caucus has accused Ramirez Rosa of physical and verbal harassment of Alderman Emma Mintz from the 37th Ward during a meeting on Thursday to discuss a bid to ask voters during the March primary if Chicago should remain a sanctuary city for migrants. So
they lied about that. The video came out of the actual incident. He didn't touch her. And she later voted against censuring him for that. But, I mean, he had to resign from his position on the voting board. Apparently some of that stuff really did happen. And he did stop her at the door. And I guess, I don't know what was said, but he did stop her at the door. And it certainly appeared that he was trying to stop that vote from happening.
In case people are not familiar with Chicago politics, okay, so Chicago is because what reactionary politicians like people like DeSantis do is they take Democrat-run cities. They've done this in New York City too. So people like DeSantis or Abbott in Texas, they put migrants on buses and they send them to cities like Chicago or New York or Minneapolis, and they just dump them. So Chicago, if I recall correctly, is trying to use a school on the south side as housing for migrants. And so it's basically like reactionary identity politics because they have all of these, because Chicago just had a mayoral election last year. So Brandon Johnson, who was a progressive, supported this, right? And who is that? It was some type of Polak name. What was the guy that was running against him?
Paul Vallis.
Vallis. So Vallis is apparently working with like conservative black preachers and community activists to stir up hatred against the migrants because it's basically, they're coming, they're taking all our resources, that type of shit. And black
for what it's worth, that this fear campaign, it's having a real effect.
It is,
unfortunately.
Yeah. And because like if you know anything about racial politics in the United States, just because somebody is a minority group, that doesn't necessarily mean that they get along with other minorities. Especially in like LA, blacks and Chicanos do not like each other. Like I did not know that until I talked to somebody that's actually from LA. It's basically a lot of prison shit. And like in LA, Latino gangs were literally trying to ethnically cleanse black people from their neighborhoods. Like Hawaiian Gardens, like they literally shot a black kid in the face. Jesus. And like I said, it's like, it's jail shit. I think the Mexican mafia put out a green light on black people. Like the Sureños, the Mexican gangs down there work with Nazis. The Norteños, I think, work with Bloods. But like, and this is very, very deep history. Like in Texas during Jim Crow, Mexicans were considered white. So they could go to schools with white people, all that type of shit. And you had this reactionary group called LULAC that was basically segregationist. Their line was, let the Negro handle his own problems. So there was very little solidarity until like the mid 60s. But like working class black and Latino people, I mean, we would intermarry occasionally, stuff like that. But it's not like we're the best buddies. So in Chicago, all of this shit is coming back to the fore.
Yeah. Big time. And even because most of these migrants are from Venezuela, and I'm not painting with a broad brush because there are a lot of progressives in the Mexican and Puerto Rican communities here. Chicago has a huge Hispanic population of mostly Mexicans and Puerto Ricans. Huge. People don't realize that.
Whole Puerto Rican neighborhood, Little Village, isn't it?
Little Village, I think, is mostly Mexican. It's Humboldt Park, where I live, that's mostly Puerto Rican.
Wow.
I live kind of right on the edge.
Mm.
But
Cicero is mainly Mexican too. Like I was shocked. Yeah. Like when Martin Luther King,
Al Capone's old stomping grounds.
When Martin Luther King, yes, I've watched Boardwalk Empire too. When Martin Luther King went to Cicero, like he literally was afraid he was going to be lynched.
because of the Polish and Italians there.
Yeah, and I think the first black family tried to move there in 51. And like they literally like thousands of people surrounded this apartment building. Like they were literally getting ready to burn it down. And the cops blamed the black dude. He was like, "Bro, I don't know what the fuck you thought this was, but you need to get your black ass back in that car, go back to Chicago, go back to the South Side, and forget about Cicero."
Yeah. Martin Luther King had a bad time in Chicago.
Yeah.
One of the things that this is just a little bit of family history. One of the things I'm really proud of is that my great grandfather, who I mentioned was doing tenant organizing, was one of the only white labor organizers who was willing to work with him and partnered with him when he came here.
Oh, your great granddad met MLK?
Yeah, there's an old newspaper article with a picture of the two of them, like arm in arm. It's a thing my dad was a huge liberal. He used to love to trot that out. But yeah, they knew each other.
Oh, so you've got some pretty venerable ancestry there. Next you're gonna tell me you're related to the guy that stabbed Vorward.
I wish. My daughter's middle name is after him. No. I mean, that was the thing. That was what Martin Luther King was in Chicago doing. Chicago was not like a legally segregated city. I mean, it's very segregated, but not like it didn't have Jim Crow. He was doing tenant organizing here, white and black tenant families and communities. That's why he came here, and it went over like a lead balloon because of how racist the Polish and Italian communities were.
Yeah, and never mind the Irish. I actually have a book.
Yeah, Irish too. You're right. Yes, can't forget about the Irish.
I actually have a book. It's on my other bookshelf. It's called Black Metropolis, but it has like a list of not a list, a map of like, because I'm pretty sure you're familiar with the history of Bronzeville and all that. But like it has a map of where like black people lived, and like it on many blocks, like at least within the South Side, near South, all of that, like they were integrated. Like you had it showed like black, Italian. Blacks and Latinos back then generally lived close by each other. But like, okay, there's a line here and then the Irish.
Yup.
Like,
and it's still like that. They still have their little enclave on the deep South Side, and they're all cops.
Bridgeport.
Yeah, Bridgeport. It's further south. It's literally Beverly Hills, Chicago. People just call it Beverly. No. But like that's where all the Irish cops live in this city.
Yeah, I know Bridgeport because that's where the Dailies are from.
Yeah, Bridgeport is still I mean, you still have a lot of that element there, but there's also like a pretty strong black and Latino working class element in that neighborhood as well. So and a lot of like students and like hipsters too.
Oh yeah, so the students.
It's not a cheap neighborhood. But.
So they're basically doing to Bridgeport what the hipsters did to Southie in Boston.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Pilsen, which is like just west of Bridgeport, which is a historically very Mexican neighborhood. I mean, it's pretty much like a foregone conclusion now, but the gentrification there has been brutal the past 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, I was when I was in Chicago in 2016. I actually got off the L in Pilsen. I was hanging out. I was at an ILPS conference actually, and I got drunk with some people, and I was just riding the L around all night, and I got off in Pilsen, and I was like,
awesome Mexican food at like 2 a.m.
I got some very good Mexican food, which I proceeded to throw up, and yeah, I mean I love Chicago. I don't know what you think of St. Louis, but yeah, I love Chicago. I might come back.
I haven't seen enough of St. Louis, during the day. Because when I've been there, it was the one time we met for that wedding. And then the other times I've been there, it's just been like to crash overnight. I like hung out with some people. I went to the zoo, which was cool, but I haven't really experienced the city as much as I would like to. But I mean, what I have, I like it. I like those butter cakes.
The gooey butter cakes?
Yeah, that shit is. And I know you disagree with me, but I like Emo's pizza too.
I don't disagree. Emo's is all right. It's just like okay, when you grow up eating something, it's not it's not like new to you. Like
That's fair.
Like
That's
people
fair.
anybody that's raised in St. Louis. Like I grew up on Emos, toasted ravioli, Vest soda, like all that shit. Red Hot Riplets. Like that's what we eat here. Just like your food, like your local food in Chicago. Like oh wow, another fucking pizza. Let's go. Like it's not.
Or like the Italian beef sandwiches that everyone discovered because of that TV show.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah. Or like New York. Yay, a fucking dollar slice. Whoop de fucking do. But like you go there for the first time, and like everybody that comes to St. Louis, they leave addicted to toasted ravioli. I'm like, bro, you know you can buy big ass bags of those to take home with you, right?
Yup. I mean, yeah, you can get them in the freezer section at a supermarket here, so it's not unheard of.
They sell T-Rabs up there?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
They're not that good, but...
What do you mean they're not that good?
I mean, the frozen ones are not that good.
See, I can tell your dad was a chef. So, you got any more questions for me? Unless you want to insult my city some more?
No, I like St. Louis. I mean, I guess the thing with Carlos Ramirez Rosa, I was going to ask what you think about using those kinds of like underhanded political tactics for like a good cause.
Yeah, I guess
I mean,
they're good. They're good as long as you don't get caught like he did.
Yeah. Okay.
But, I mean, you know that Machiavelli is literally one of my favorite political theorists, right?
Oh yeah. Wait, that's another one of those things we have in common. I love Machiavelli.
Why would I be opposed to that? But the thing is that like this guy got caught, so I guess the goal would be to not get caught.
Well, but he got caught, but also
especially like, okay, like we have to learn how to play like the whole race politics thing. Like you already know that these black conservatives, these black preachers, what have you, that are not in DSA, they're very strongly tied to the church, and you have to like not necessarily walk on eggshells, but you have to be tactful, especially if you know that Vallas and his clique are trying to cook up a race war between Hispanics and black people.
Yeah, and that's exactly what this was an expression of. They used that language of he put his hands on a black woman, right? Even though it wasn't true. That's what they said to stir the shit up.
I mean, it's fucking politics. 95% of the shit that you hear isn't true.
Yeah.
Or is gravely embellished.
Right.
But like, yeah, like you would like just like me, like, what's an example? Who could black people bully? Okay, anti-Semitism. Okay, like black people are routinely accused of being anti-Semitic. Like that's literally what threw Jesse Jackson's 1984 presidential campaign off the rails. He called New York he called it a very unpleasant anti-Semitic name. So in no way would I go up to where I'm an alderman, when I go up to my Jewish colleague and badger her or him on whether or not or on their position on Palestine, because that would get me labeled anti-Semitic. Now, if they come out and say something stupid and Zionist, then I can go in, but I would not seek out that interaction. So we have to be tactical when we talk about doing politics. Like I'm not going to, because then, especially if if the individual in question is a woman who is white, then it's going to be black savage insults innocent Jewish white woman.
Right.
So
right.
I know that. So I'm very, very, very tactful in my interactions with people who are Jewish, because I don't want to end up being called an anti-Semite. That being said, if they just come out and call me an anti-Semite anyway, then I'm going to rip them to shreds because that's racist. But at the same time, I'm also aware of the of people like Louis Farrakhan and his role in helping many black people turn into inadvertent anti-Semites.
Right, and also putting that perception out there or giving them that easy ammunition to use.
Yeah.
I think it's like, yeah, it's that tactic of, you know, attack when the enemy's weak, don't attack when you're weak. And that's an area where, you know, especially like as a white leftist or progressive, that's an area where I'm weak. You know, it's not my job to start going on after like the Black Caucus in the Chicago City Council, because that's not a fight I'm going to win.
Yeah, it's not. But if you have a black ally that owes you a favor or two and also disagrees with the ridiculous stand that was taken by the Black Caucus, that would be a time for them to shine, so to speak. But we have to be tactful. Like, there's ways to get things done without making yourself look like an ass. And like, look at this guy. They made him. They put him off of his. They put him out of his position as the floor leader in zoning chair. And I'm surprised they didn't make him leave office entirely.
Well, yeah, we'll see when the next election happens. He's pretty popular in his ward. His ward, he's pretty popular with the Hispanic community there, at least with the progressive elements of it. And there is that section of gentrifier, like white progressives. That
I mean, he kind of looks like a gentrifier white progressive. I'm joking. It's the shirt.
Yeah, you know, it is what it is. We gotta. At least we can use. I don't like the gentrification, and I strive to not contribute to it as much as possible. But
you live in a Puerto Rican neighborhood.
I know.
I'm joking.
No, I mean, it's a whole long conversation, but like, I wouldn't buy a house here and start like, you know, trying to raise my property values and shit like that.
Yeah, I laugh at people, especially leftists. Like, they try to convince themselves, and like, gentrification is not just white person living in ethnic neighborhood.
Yeah, definitely.
Gentrification is white person moving into ethnic neighborhood, buying much property, and then other white people come following their example, buying up more property, turning homeowners into renters, and eventually changing the class and ethnic demographic of the neighborhood. That's gentrification.
Absolutely. And I do feel that like white renters like me, I don't own property.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that people like me can contribute to that process, depending on how we carry ourselves when we come to neighborhoods like this.
Yeah.
I could not afford to live in any of the white neighborhoods in Chicago. Maybe now that I'm a teacher and I'm making a little more money, maybe within like a couple years I could. But like, until this point in my life, I could never even afford to live in those neighborhoods. I'm here because this is the only place I can afford to live.
What happened what happened to the neighborhood where the Young Patriots were? Uptown.
So Uptown is actually, I mean, it's one of those areas that's very diverse, but it actually has a very large African, like, from the continent population.
Wow.
So there's a lot of African immigrants there, and there's also, that's where our like little Vietnam is. There's like a whole little, it's not nearly as big as Chinatown, but there's this little like Vietnam area up there. And then there's a contingent of like white hipsters and yuppies too. So it's like it's one of those very like hip, diverse neighborhoods where it's expensive, but it's not crazy like the really bourgeois areas. And there's enough like ethnic markets and food places that a lot of people want to go visit it.
Oh, so what happened to all the high Thurmans people?
You know, they dusted off their degrees that their parents made them get and became part of the problem.
Oh, so yeah, because like there used to be a substantial core of like when black people came up north, the Appalachian and poor white people from the South followed behind us.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it used to be a white working class neighborhood. There are white working class people in Chicago, of course, but there aren't like white working class neighborhoods. The white neighborhoods are very, very wealthy.
That's like
even like the Young Lords. They started in Lincoln Park, which was a heavily Puerto Rican neighborhood in the 60s and 70s. But now they only operate here in Humboldt Park because Lincoln Park has become completely gentrified. It's one of the ritziest neighborhoods in the city now.
Oof. Isn't that where Obama? No, Obama lives in Kenmore Park.
Hyde Park, which is right next to Kenmore on the south side. Hyde Park is like the little. I mean, it's where most of the white people on the south side live. It's not all white people by any means, but because they have the University of Chicago there, it's much like higher income and higher property values compared to everything around it, and that's where Obama lived.
That's where they're building this library at too, isn't it?
I actually don't remember. I thought that they were building it a little bit further north in Bronzeville or Kenwood or something like that, but I could be wrong about that.
Oh man. Well, I will be sure to hit you up next time I'm up there, which might be soon because my boss keeps encouraging me to take days off.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, we'll hit the town.
Yeah, it'll take me somewhere where I can get robbed and shot. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed the discussion. What is my opinion on this? Oh, I hope it's nothing stupid.
Is this for real? Mind-blowing secrets hidden in old Disney films?
What am I going to look at this stupid shit for? I'm trying to go to bed.
For real. It's 3 a.m. Come on.
Yeah, go to bed. Take some melatonin.
All right, BRG. I'll see you. Thanks for having me on.
No